Alright, so today we're going to be checking out the Elegoo Saturn 3D printer. Now I have done the pre-production Saturn unboxing and setup and all those things. So if you want a little more details on the packaging and the setting up, then check that video out. The printers are practically identical. There's very slight differences. And mostly the main difference with this one is that it does have that monochrome screen with the 4K resolution. So I'm really excited to see how well this printer will do. And I feel like this medium format resin printer here is probably going to be very popular among hobbyists out there that are serious about resin printing. Now, as you guys can see, I have my name here permanently engraved into this cover, which I appreciate Elegoo doing this, but I feel like it wasn't maybe necessary. It kind of distracts from the product. So maybe if we flip it around, we can see how it actually look like. But in any case, let's go ahead and start with looking at all the details of this printer. So starting from the top here, we can see that we have two linear rails for the Z-axis, and everything is really heavy duty metal, which feels very solid and high quality. So we got the lead screw in the middle that moves the whole Z-axis mechanism here up and down. We can see our bearings here for the linear rails, two of them on each side. So very heavy duty and solid, and everything is metal, or I guess aluminum. So we got a really large knob here, which is easy to operate and smooth. And that's what locks in our build plate, and that's how it mounts. So pretty simple design, but very effective. We do have two locking bolts here, and we're going to do the leveling here in a second. It's quite simple. Nice little logo. So underneath we can see the tub, and it is a pretty large printing volume. It mounts on these two little bolts, so to take it out you got to completely unscrew it on each side, and it just comes right out. And you guys can see the bottom of it with all those bolts all around, which gives you the ability to change the film when you need to. There are little handles here that poke out to raise it up, and also another detail here, if you look at that bolt there, it kind of pokes out. Those are actually feet. So when you sit it down, you're not actually putting it down on the film itself. So here we can see the LCD screen, and it's very large. There's a sticker here that says do not peel off this tape. This is part of the screen and needs to be there. You can see there's little grooves here on the four corners, and that's where those little feet fall in, and so it's quite easy to align the tub with the printer. Looking here at the Z-axis, you can see we have an optical sensor here, and there's a pin that goes in it, and that's what the Z-axis uses as an end-stop switch. The lead screw stepper motor is underneath. So yeah, overall pretty typical design, very nice and high quality. And here on the front we can see the logo here and the model. We have a pretty decent sized touchscreen LCD. To the left there's nothing here to see, and to the right we have a USB port, and this is where we're going to plug in that thumb drive that it came with. Going to the back, we can see there's two fans, and they're both running right now as it's on. We got a network connection. We got some venting here and the manufacturing label, and you guys can see the dimensions of the machine itself, and also the weight being 10 kilograms. And on this side we have the on and off switch with the power input socket here. on its side, and underneath we can see we have venting holes, and there's a large heat sink. That's what you see there, that aluminum kind of look. And that's actually for the ultraviolet LED lights to keep them cool. We got nice squishy rubber feet on the four corners. So yeah, very nicely designed and executed printer here. And I love the cover because it's one piece and it's high quality material, and it's got like this reddish tint to it, and this prevents from UV rays of going in. And also it sits in this groove here, which fits nicely and helps prevent vapors from coming out. So the first thing we need to do is level the bed, and it did come with this nice little instructions here of how to do that, and also to use it as a spacer. So let's go ahead and put our build plate back on. We're going to tighten it on there. Let's grab our tools that came with the printer, and we're going to need this large Allen wrench. We do have some extra parts in there, which is nice. Also one of these big bolts that go on the sides here. So what we need to do is we need to loosen them. And when we do that, our whole platform here is going to be loose, so it's kind of like on a ball. You can see how it moves anywhere. And it also has a spring loaded up and down motion, so whenever it hits the bottom, it can, you know, offset a bit. So we just simply need to take this card now and put it underneath here between the screen and the build plate. And then we're going to go to our tools. I'm going to click here on manual and then home. And so that's going to lower it down to where it needs to be. So you guys can see that it's just in the right spot because it kind of pushed the spring in just a bit. Now we just need to align it nicely. And don't forget, it does spin around in circles too. So, and then we're just gonna kind of push down on the plate as we tighten these bolts. So, and the reason you want to push down on it because you don't want one end to go up or, you know, be uneven. So if you push down on it, it kind of helps it stay level. So this doesn't need to be crazy tight, just, you know, snug it up and that's it. And our paper should be pretty tight, and if we look really close, we can kind of see our gap all the way through, and it looks very even. That should be perfect right there. So simple as that. Now we just need to raise this thing back up. The way we do that, and you guys can see here, we have 0.1, 1 millimeter, and then 10 millimeters at a time. So we're set on 10 right now. So if we click up here, it'll just go up. So we might want to click this quite a few times so it'll go up high enough. And that's as simple as leveling the build platform. So not very complicated at all. So now that we know that's good, we can go ahead and put our tub back in. And by the way, guys, you saw there that we had to peel off the protective layers on both sides here. So don't forget to do that. Actually, I haven't mentioned yet that it does have a little cutout here for pouring the resin out, which is nice. And also a little max level so you don't overfill it. So again, the tub drops in right where it needs to be. Tighten these fasteners on the side. And that should be it, and you're ready to go. So resin printing is quite easy to get started with. Keep in mind, if you're going to be working with resin printers, you need gloves, you need a mask, and you also need a ventilated area. Like right now we're in my garage and I got windows open, so there's plenty of ventilation. So make sure you understand the safety of resin printing before you get into it. All right, so let's grab our thumb drive and we're gonna plug it here on the side. And let's go ahead and see if this printer came with any kind of test files. So we're gonna click on print over here. Well, before we do that, let's go ahead and check out all of the menus here. So we got tools, so we got manual, exposure, set to 0, stop, tank clean, and back. So manual is what we saw where we, you know, home the bed. And also can move it up and down. Exposure, this is testing the UV lights. We can indicate here for how many seconds. So let's click next. And it'll actually project a pattern on the top. So, and if you see this pattern, that means everything is working great. So let's go back. So set to 0, we don't need to do that because this is offsetting our home from where it's at. Let's say if your homing is not working out and you need to set a new position, you would use this. This is to stop whatever the printer is doing. And then the tank clean is kind of the same thing as the exposure test, except it opens up all of the light to the tank. So if we click on next, we're gonna see it's completely filling the whole tank with UV light. And this is great after you're done printing and you poured all your resin out and you just need to solidify whatever is in there so you can pull it out of there and get it out. So I really like how it comes with that. So here we have system information about the printer. And here we can also adjust the sound if we want it. So I guess we'll leave it on. I think it was off. Internet connection. So if you're going to use that Ethernet cable in the back, you can connect through there. We have some service here, how to reach the company. Languages, and it looks like we only have English or Chinese. Let's go back to English. This is going to be calibrating our touchscreen, which we don't need to do, and that's pretty much it for that. And the last one we have here is print, and that's going to read our thumb drive on the side. So as you guys can see, very simple controls and not hard to figure out at all. So let's click on print and see what we got. So it looks like we have quite a few folders in there, but let's see if we have any kind of test files. Okay, so here it says model for printing. Let's see. Okay, so we do have a couple roots there to print. So let's just go ahead and start with that. So I normally don't put on my gloves for this process as I begin because I'm not going to be touching the resin in any way. I'm just touching the bottle, and we do have some Elegoo gray type resin, which looks pretty nice. Any kind of resin will work. That's 405 nanometer wavelength, and a printer like this doesn't require that you buy, you know, the brand resin just for this printer. You could use any kind, which is nice, but I find the Elegoo resin to be very high quality, and I use it for everything else. And also, guys, consider how large this tub is. You will need quite a bit of resin, so you probably want to get at least something this size to get you started. So let's go ahead and pour it in there. So yeah, we're just going to simply fill it up, and you guys can see we need quite a bit of it. So I think that's plenty for this one. And also be careful not to shake this up way too much. I shook it up a little extra here, and you guys can see all the little bubbles in there, and that's not good. You want to just kind of twirl it around like this, not actually shake it. So my bottle was sitting for a while, and I wanted to make sure I mixed it, but I guess I over mixed it a bit. So I got quite a bit of bubbles in there, but that should not be a huge problem because, you know, all the bubbles go up. So yeah, at this point we're ready to print, and all we got to do is click on our models here. We can see the preview, and then we'll push start, and there it goes. It's going to start printing. So there it goes. So we got our first layer started. So the first few layers are normally going to be quite long because it's trying to stick to the build plate. And then it's going to go really quick after that, probably 2 seconds between layers. So here on the top here, we have the layer and what it looks like, what it's printing at the moment. Then we got the percentage bar, and then our model name. And then over here we have how much time is left, which just says 3 hours and 39 minutes. And then how much time passed, about 3 minutes now. And we are on our third layer. Just switched to 4th out of 1000 layers. And on the side here we can see we have stop, pause, and settings. So if we click on the settings here, see we can adjust a few things. So we got 5 bottom layers, and the bottom exposure is 30 seconds. So for 5 layers we're going to be exposing at 30 seconds, and that's what it's doing right now. And then normal exposure is going to be at 2 seconds after that. And you can also control your offset here too. So yeah, and this is pretty much all of the controls you will need for this kind of printing. And you guys can see that we're on our 5th layer, so after this one it should be going pretty quick every 2 seconds. All right, so that's our 5th layer, and now it should be pretty quick, a couple seconds each layer. So let's go ahead and see. 1, 2, and there it goes. So it's coming up and then back down. So yeah, everything looks good, and the machine is very quiet overall. You know, it's just some fan noise and that's it. So let's go ahead and put the cover over it. So I'm going to bring my microphone in so you guys can hear it maybe. It's ultra quiet except for the fans in the back obviously, and it's mostly at the back. So yeah, overall a very pleasant and quiet printer. And of course, it being a resin printer, there's not too much going on. So yeah, it looks like everything's fine. So I'm gonna let it print here for a few layers more. And I wanna try out a feature that I hope this printer has because it's quite important in my opinion. All right, so we're on like layer 52, 53 right now. So this is a good time to try out the pause feature. Now when I pause it, it should go up and we should be able to see underneath the build plate. And the reason that's important is, you know, when you start to print, you want to know if it's stuck and everything's good before you print it way up here where you can see it. It wouldn't be fun if, you know, you have a fail already and you can't check it. But like this, if we push pause, it should go up, and it is. I'll get you guys a little closer here, but yeah, if it pauses, we should be able to look underneath, and sure enough we can see. So yeah, you can kind of see them right there. It's a little bit hard on this angle, but yeah, it looks like everything's fine and they're both stuck and we're good to go. And that's a great feature to have to confirm that everything's fine. So I just push play again and it resumes printing from where it left off. So I'm very happy to see that it does that. All right, so everything looks good, and we'll just let it print out and we'll see how the prints come out. All right, so our prints are finished. And we can see that they're both successful. So let's go ahead and put on our safety gloves here. So I got this sheet pan here so we can work out of, so we don't get the resin everywhere. But yeah, we're gonna just simply release the build plate and maybe drain it a bit by tilting it. Looks like most of it's drained off already, and the top of the build plate is tapered, so it does run off pretty well. So we can see the model stuck really well, but we do need to break them loose and clean them up. So let's grab the spatula. They came with the printer, and it is sharpened somewhat, so it should still work, but let's go ahead and try it. See how easy these things pop off. Okay, so that was stuck very well. I had to hit it pretty hard to cut it loose. Okay, that one was a bit easier. Yeah, I mean, there's not really a graceful way to get them off, but they did pop off, and you guys can see the build platform seems to stick very well. So now that we got the models off the plate, we can go ahead and put this back in the machine because we will be printing more. But what we need to do is we need to talk about post-processing. And if you're going to do a lot of resin printing, you probably want to look into a cure and wash machine like this to process your models. Now, you can't just wash them with alcohol and then dry them, but you don't get nearly as good a result as if you would use something like this. So there's many different brands and kinds, but they all pretty much do the same thing. They wash the model in alcohol and then they treat it with UV light to solidify the resin. So if you're interested in something like this, I did do a couple of videos. This one's the Creality, but one thing to keep in mind is that you will need a lot of alcohol because we're going to have to fill all of this up. So I'm using 70% here. Also, make sure you guys are wearing a mask because you don't want to breathe all this alcohol. It evaporates really quickly. So take your safety pretty serious with this. All right, so we got a good amount of alcohol in there. Let's go ahead and bring the basket out. And in the basket, we're going to put the two models, and then we're going to dunk them in there. We're going to take our lid and close it. Power it on, and here we are on wash for 2 minutes. Let's go ahead and add a little more to it. Let's say 5. We'll push play, and there's a little magnetic coupling between the tub there and the bottom where it spins up propeller that twirls the water, and every minute it reverses directions. And after the 5 minutes is over, then we'll cure it for about 10 minutes, and you guys see how easy that is. Also pull out the models, and oh yeah, they're looking really good. So they are wet, and we want to go ahead and air dry them. So this is kind of important. You don't want to wash them. Let's say if you don't even use the machine, you don't want to just wash them and then put them straight into the sun. And that's one way you can cure them is in sunlight. But you want to go ahead and the alcohol, whatever's on there, to completely evaporate. If it evaporates too quick, it's going to leave like these white blisters all over the model. So you want it to air dry sort of ish in a shaded area or like indoors somewhere. And then after they're pretty dry, then we can stick them either outdoors or on a machine like this that will cure them. But as the models are air drying, let's go ahead and jump to the computer, and we're gonna go to Chitubox and slice a model for the Saturn. So before opening the slicing program, let's go ahead and see what's on this thumb drive that came with the printer. So it looks like we have a PDF here. All right, so this is just the PDF of the manual. Got a test folder here, and that's the STL of the Rook that's included. Then we got a folder of My Mini Factory, I guess models that came with the printer. So we could theoretically print any of these models here if we wanted to. There's a STL file of each. So that's pretty cool that it does come with these. Here we have a G code called Saturn Machine Parameters. Not sure exactly what that's for. And then we have the slicer itself, which is slicing software. And they have it for Linux, Mac, and Windows 32 and 64. So I'm using Mac, and you guys can see it's Chitubox version 1.65. I already have a Chitubox installed. Let's go ahead and open it. This is the smallest I can get it, but you guys can see there on the left top, it says version 1.8.1. So now when you first get the slicing Chitubox program, it's going to look like this. And so the first thing you want to do is go to the settings button here and click on that. This is where your machine parameters are. And so what you want to do is you want to click on this little add new printer button here. And if you click on that, it's going to ask you to choose your brand of machine. So they have quite a few different kinds. And obviously we are looking for Elegoo, which is right here. And we're going to find the Saturn and click on that. And it's going to actually show us a little picture. I'm going to click OK. And so now all the machine parameters are automatically set. So we have the resolution here, which is 4K. Here's our build volume, which is 192 by 120 by 200 millimeters tall. So this is a very nice medium format resin printer, and actually quite large, or at least most of them out there. Then we got resin. Just leave it all the same way unless you know what you're doing. And then here also, you probably want to leave this the way it is. The only thing you might want to play with maybe is the layer height here, if you want to make it more fine or more coarse, but I would keep it at this. And then here you can also adjust the bottom layer count. So and probably more importantly here is the exposure time. So it's set at 2.5 seconds, and you can, go down a little or up a little depending on how you want to tune it, but I would leave this all the way it is. It should be all just fine and actually tuned to this printer. And under advanced here we have anti-aliasing, helping with, well, I guess it explains here what it does. It kind of softens the image and the way the light is projected. Then we got gray level at 3, image blur, and blur image pixel. So this all helps create a more smoother model, but if you want to play with this, you can make it more smoother or less smoother, but we're going to leave everything the way it is, and everything is good. So we're just going to exit this. And so now we can see the build plate here is our Elegoo Saturn volume. So now we can bring in models and slice them. So let's go ahead and do an Eiffel Tower, because I feel like this would be a good example here. Plus this will get us, some height here on the print. So on the left side here, you have some main controls. This is move, so you could move the model around on the build plate. So if it's floating, you can put it on the plate, you can center it and reset it, or you can move it precisely with these controls here, or you can just grab it and move it like this. So I'm gonna click on center now. So rotate is exactly what it is. You can rotate it around in any direction you want. And then scale is also same thing. You can scale either each individual axis or scale the whole thing at once. And if this is locked, it will scale together at the locked ratio. But I do like this button here because for this Eiffel Tower, I want to scale it to fit the platform or the maximum we can print. So let's go ahead and click that, and you guys can see this is what it's suggesting the maximum we do. And you guys can see what's limiting us is the 200 millimeters. So right now it is completely maxed out on the Z axis, which is 200 millimeters, which fits very nicely on this bed, this Eiffel Tower. So this should be a pretty good print here. And we're definitely going to print this model next. And here we have a mirror option where you can mirror the model itself. So on the top here we have folders. So this is to open, to save, screenshot, and record. I guess we could have used that, but we can clone models by clicking copy here. So if we select the model and click that, it's going to bring another one in. Obviously we don't want that, so let's delete it by clicking delete. Here, if you have a lot of different small models, you can click on this and it auto lay them all out with good distances in between. So here we have a really cool option called hollow. So if you put an STL in here that is solid, you can hollow it out where you can save resin. And then we have this option here, which is also really cool, is dig hole, and this lets you punch holes in the models to drain the resin out depending on what you're printing. But keep in mind that when you're printing it, this is going to be upside down. So the Eiffel Tower is actually going to be like this. I can show you guys here on the printer. So just keep that in mind whenever you're thinking about draining resin as it's printing. Think of how it's going to be upside down. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And the last button here is repair. So if your model is very rough, it'll attempt to, repair the problems that it thinks it might have while printing. So you got navigation over here, or you can just, if you want to look at just the top, you can do that, or the front, let's say. So, and then down here we have the layers, and here we can see that it's the layer number 4000 at 200 millimeters. So yeah, there's 4000 layers to this print. And then we can look at it from an X-ray point of view also. Now to the right here, we have the information about the file here. So this is our STL here, and we can delete it from here. So if we don't want this model, we can delete it. So you can have multiple models all in here. The settings is what we clicked earlier to set up the printer. And then this is our slice button here when we're ready to slice it. Quite majors over here, if we click here, this is the support section, and for some reason it's not opening up at the moment. In any case, this is where you're going to play around with all your supports when you click over here, but for some reason my computer is not pulling it up here. But yeah, if you want to learn more about how to use G2Box, there's a lot of great YouTube videos out there. But let's go back and go ahead and slice our model. So we're going to click on this big slice button, and this little button here lets you choose what printer you want to slice for. So obviously we only have one printer right now, so it's already on the Saturn. So we're going to click slice, and it's going to go ahead and slice the model. And then it's going to give us a preview of the slice. So with normal resin, this is our volume in milliliters, and then the weight of how much it's going to use, the estimated price here, and the time it's going to take. So it's going to take 12 hours and 15 minutes to print this Eiffel Tower, which is definitely quite long, but it is the full 200 millimeters. So down here we have all of our exposure times and all the other stuff. So yeah, we can still look at the model on this end of the screen, and on this side we can play back by clicking play, and it's going to play from the top down, and we can see each layer and what the printer is going to be printing. So let's go ahead and go down a little lower here. So yeah, that's pretty cool because it gives you a preview of what it's going to be doing, and it's in real time of what's happening on each layer. So yeah, this is a really nice slicer that's quite detailed. So if we like everything and everything looks good, we can go ahead and click the save button. So we're going to name it and save it to the location we want. So I'm just going to save it to the desktop right now. And there it goes. It pops up. So it's actually writing the file right now. I guess I should probably stop this play here. Trying to do two things at once. But yeah, you guys can't see, but there down there you can see the right file. For some reason I can't fit this G2 box in my recording window. But yeah, it does take a little while to write it because it is quite a intense file and it's quite large and there's a lot of details. But there it goes, it's done. And so now we're going to grab this CTB file and just drag it into our thumb drive, save it to that, and now we can print off of the thumb drive the Eiffel Tower. Alright, so it looks like our models are dried up pretty well, or air dried. We can go ahead and cure them, so I'm going to remove this and you guys can kind of see how that works. There's some magnets on the bottom and some magnets in here that spin the propeller, and that's how it mixes it. So instead of the wash tub, now we have the cure turning plate that slides right in here. And it's got a mirror finish on it. And we're just gonna set the models on here. Put our cover back on. Then we're gonna switch to the cure mode. Put the time on, let's say 10 minutes. We'll click start. And you guys will see there's UV lights back there that turn on, and then the models spin actually pretty quick, and that way they can be treated everywhere all around. So as that's curing, let's move it a little bit out of the way here, and we'll grab our thumb drive that we just sliced the Eiffel Tower in, plug it in, power the Saturn on, go to print, find our folder, click on it, push play, and we're good to go. So that print's gonna start. And there it goes. So yeah guys, keep in mind that resin printing can be fun if you have all of the tools to process the models with, and it makes up the cleanup and just the overall experience much better with resin printing when you have a wash and cure. I just realized I had the speed on quick over here, that's why it was going crazy. It's on normal now, and now even slower on slow. So yeah, that wasn't supposed to be that quick. And as simple as that, our models should be nice and cured, and they're actually a little bit warm. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at these. So hopefully that's close enough here. But yeah, overall looking really, really good. There's a lot of fine detail, and you guys can even see the writing on the inside there, maybe. And the little strand inside, the ladder. So yeah, looking really good. And if we look at the surfaces, they're really smooth, or pretty smooth overall, and creating a really nice smooth finish. Alright, so far so good. So I'm gonna go ahead and print this Eiffel Tower and a few other models, and we'll take a closer look at those. All right, guys, so as you can see, the Elegoo Mars is an incredible printer and overall just a really pleasant experience. I love how heavy duty everything is and just makes it easy to print. Now all these prints were printed with the standard parameters that the Chitu box gave us, so I'm sure there's a little bit of fine tuning we could have done, but all these prints here took no effort whatsoever. Now I did have a little bit of an issue with the tank when I first started printing it, and this is the first piece. So what happened was I did not use supports and it had very small surface area to hold on to, and it easily just popped off, and yeah, I had this issue here, which was unfortunate because I did lose quite a bit of resin. And so then I attempted to print another one which was a lot more successful, but I still had an issue. You guys can see one of these popped off here, and I didn't use enough supports underneath to hold it. It ended up cutting one loose. So yeah, you know, it's definitely a learning curve, and even though I've done resin printing a lot in the past, I've never really did larger prints, and larger prints definitely need more supports. But overall, I love how the printer puts down the layers, and the finish is really nice, and I think using that wash and cure really enhances that too. So yeah, this tank is really cool. And also on this print here, what I wanted to show you guys is here on the foot, if you see that little white spot right there, that's a burn. So that was some alcohol left, and then I put it in for curing, and this is what happens when alcohol evaporates too fast, it turns white. You definitely want to let the alcohol completely evaporate before you cure it in the sun or the machine. The centipede print is also super cool because there's a lot of little pieces that combine together and make this really cool, flexible, I guess it's a millipede little toy here, and this thing turned out great. I did break off one little foot when I was prying it off, but after I realized I need to be more careful, it came off really easy. So that's a fun one here. And this print here really shows how detailed the printer is. Now I do believe that we could have got it more detailed by adjusting some of those settings in the slicer with the smoothness turned down more, but still, even the way it was, turned out quite impressive. And this print did have a lot of support going all around it, and they broke off really clean. But again, I didn't use enough supports, and my base here kind of melted. So yeah, using enough supports is quite important. The Eiffel Tower also turned out great. As you guys saw, you can see through it all the way to the top. So yeah, very nice and beautifully printed. And it's not crooked or anything, it's straight. Yeah, there's no issues there. It did warp just a bit on the legs here on the outer, but it does when it dries, it all kind of shrinks just a little bit, just a tiny bit. But this is normal for any resin printer. So here's a really cool one. So this is some kind of Neuron or something, or a model of it. You know, this would be impossible to print unless you had a resin printer because of the way this thing is. Yeah, that's quite impressive, and these are pretty thin here, and it did a good job on them. Very cool, and there was no supports here, it just stuck to the bed, just like that, upside down and then printed. So, and also guys, as you saw there, having a wash and cure system like we used here really helps and aids in post-processing to produce these really nice looking prints. Really happy with this printer overall, and I think this thing is a huge win for anybody that wants to get into resin printing or just wants another resin printer that's larger. Then the 192 width and 120 depth is very nice size, and especially 200 millimeters tall. That's just awesome for this type of printing. The UI on this thing is super clean and easy to use. Touchscreen is responsive, the printer's quiet, and the best part about it is the 4K mono screen that it has, so you get very high quality detailed prints. Coming out of Elegoo, of course, they've been making pretty awesome resin printers like the Mars 2 and Pro, so yeah, if you want a smaller one, check those out too. I have videos of that. But if you can stretch it to this one, this is definitely what you want. If you want the best of what resin printing has to offer for the price, I think it's going to be hard to beat this thing. So yeah, if you guys want to pick up this printer for yourself, I'm going to have some links in the description, so check that out. And if you enjoyed this video, then hit that like button. And if you want to see more videos like this, I got a pretty large playlist of all kinds of different printers that I've reviewed, so check that out. And also, there's more 3D printing videos coming up soon, so stay tuned. And as always guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.